So, sir, your daughters followed your footsteps. So, sir, what was your first reaction when they decided to enter that field?
Actually, some of them ask me whether I forced them to go into the field, but I've never actually forced them to follow ophthalmology or even medicine.
So, ma'am, how did you manage that pressure?
That pressure was not much from our parents directly. It was more so, yes, a little bit of external
Yeah, that
pressure
peer
and
pressure.
pressure from within. Having to prove ourselves and, fill in very big shoes, basically.
So,
I
sir-
have something to say. Diamonds are made under pressure.
Right.
So, see, I think I've kind of,
Polish them. Sir, what's the one lesson you have learned from your daughter?
I think the younger generation is very tech savvy and their perspective is totally different because there's so many things that have changed. In our generation has seen so much of change from landline phones to mobile phones to smartphones, televisions coming in, internet coming in, AI coming in. So many changes have been there.
When you are managing complex cases, sir, what matters more, attitude or technique?
I think it is your mindset and attitude. Attitude is everything.
So, ma'am, what's one myth about contact lenses that needs to be busted? So, sir, welcome to this show by the name of Iconic Journeys. So, the concept of this show is I want to show the story of ophthalmologist, as every ophthalmologist has a different and unique story. So, sir, it all started with you. So, sir, in our last episode, we explored your journey as an ophthalmologist. So, sir, your daughters followed your footsteps. So, sir, what was your first reaction when they decided to enter that field?
Actually, some of them ask me whether I forced them to go into the field, but I've never actually forced them to follow ophthalmology or even medicine. I think I inspired them to a large extent because more than my kids, they are like my friends. And that's how I've kind of brought them up in a fairly open and free atmosphere where they can communicate with their father. And they actually observed my lifestyle, my passion, my ability to balance my life and my work. And I think they were really impressed and thought that it's a good fix and a good profession to take up. And they actually said that yes, we want to do ophthalmology because they've been observing my practice, my progress as kids. And then so it's kind of natural for them. And then when they said that they wanted to go into ophthalmology, I was more than happy to kind of train them, to mentor them, to see that they are successful.
So, ma'am, to both of you, my question is, ma'am, why did you choose ophthalmology in the first place? And did you think you made the right choice?
Well, I think, like Dad has already said, we always had that influence and inspiration from him.
Right.
One of my earliest childhood memories is when both mom and dad were building the practice. It was a small clinic and they were completely busy and into it. So I just remember me and my sister running around the clinic during our vacations or weekends or summer vacations, trying to reach up and peep into their OPD, see what they did, or even try and watch what was happening in the OT. So I think all of that definitely inspired us, seeing how he interacted with patients and how happy the patients were after the treatment they got is always, something great to watch. And that influence has always been there in our lives. But we were never pressured into anything. We had a lot of freedom to explore what we actually wanted to do during our schooling and during our undergraduation and everything. So it was never like this was a set path for us. That influence and that positive energy was always there, but we did have the freedom, and having that freedom also, I think, led us back into this path itself.
Yeah, I think it was always quite natural, honestly. Like you grow up in an environment where you have two parents that are really passionate about something, and they're always talking about it at home. That you're really involved from the beginning. It's not like we got into the practice. Of course, we got into medicine at one stage, but even from the time we were kids, we were always very involved. And the great thing is, they never used to treat us as children and not just not take our opinion on things. They actually used to have open discussions with us about the practice from a very young age, so that really made us feel very involved. And it was not a difficult decision. Honestly, it was a very easy decision, very natural decision to go into ophthalmology.
So, ma'am, when your family member, your father, big innovator, big contributor to the field, ma'am, there must be a pressure, right? That I have to be at that level. So, ma'am, how did you manage that pressure side by side, plus doing your work, plus contributing? How did you manage that pressure?
That pressure was not much from our parents directly. It was more so, yes, a little bit of external
Yeah, that
pressure
peer
and
pressure.
pressure from within, having to prove ourselves and fill in very big shoes basically. So that was always there, but because of the support that we had from our parents, I think that played a huge role in being able to manage this and try and not just follow the exact same path that he did, but find our own way within this sphere. So everyone has their own individual strengths and weaknesses, and this is something that he's always taught us: is find your strength and then work on that, and also figure out what your weakness is and be aware of that as well. So that has always helped guide us through this system, and yes, I'm very grateful for the support we have received from our family.
Yeah, about just the pressure, of course, you're right. There is a lot of pressure, but also we were very mentally prepared for the pressure. Right? I think we always knew it was going to be there. And, when you're mentally prepared for something, you kind of let it go. So we don't really allow that to kind of affect our day to day, but it's definitely there. It's a huge expectation from people and everybody, and hopefully we're doing a good job. And it's important to back yourself as well.
So,
I
sir-
have something to say. Diamonds are made under pressure.
Right, sir.
So, see, I think I've kind of
Polish them.
polished them, and then they're turning out to be diamonds in the
Right,
field
sir.
of ophthalmology.
So, sir, it is a very proud moment for a father as well that daughters are also coming in my footsteps or something like that. So, sir, as generation is changing, so it is like that we are learning from each other, student mentor relationship. So, sir, what's the one lesson you have learned from your daughters?
I think the younger generation is very tech savvy, and their perspective is totally different because there's so many things that have changed. In our generation has seen so much of change, from landline phones to mobile phones to smartphones, televisions coming in, internet coming in, so many things, AI coming in, so many changes have been there. They are much more savvy. They understand what is needed today. So for example, in our practice, I never did any kind of marketing or social media activity. And when they came in, they said, no, it's just, I just used to focus on excellence, patient results. But when they came in, they said, no, it's very important in today's world that we be present and project what we are doing. And this has made a big change to the practice, the inflow of patients, and how patients are able to express themselves. So it's a changing world, and you need the young minds, and you learn a lot from them also.
Right, ma'am. Right, sir. So, ma'am, to both of you, what's the biggest lesson you have learned from Dr. Shri Ganesh, sir?
There are a lot of lessons. Which do I pick?
Yeah.
No, I think one of the biggest lessons, especially during surgery, that I've learned from him is to really stay calm. He in any kind of sticky situation, any high pressure situation, because being a surgeon is a high pressure job, and it's not always easy to stay calm. And one thing I've always seen him do is stay calm, clear his mind, and really fall back on his knowledge base to guide him through any crisis. So we've, from a very young age, observed that and inculcated that. So luckily, we're able to stay calm through any pressure situations and navigate it easily because of what we've seen him do.
One thing I've learned is resilience. Yes, the ability to always get back up. So life sometimes doesn't always go as you plan, but it's not about things going exactly according to plan. What I've learned from him is no matter the hurdles that life throws at you, you know, you get things coming at you from all ends which can push you down, but always remember to find it within to get back up. You know, so that resilience is a big lesson that I've learned from him.
Yeah, he just pushes through situations. It's not like he's not had failures. I
Yeah.
mean, I know the world sees the success and whatever, the excellence and everything, but he's had really tough times, and we've seen him go through that. He always picks himself back up, dusts himself off, and says, "What's next?" You know.
Because
So-
one thing as an innovator I've seen from him is you have to take chances. If you never take chances and you're in your comfort zone, you'll never actually, you know, innovate. You'll never actually do new things. So when you take chances, yes, there are times where it might not go according to plan. But you have to have the faith within yourself, faith in a higher being, whatever it is, have faith. And get back up, keep moving, keep trying, and keep innovating.
So, sir, there is a question which I missed in our last episode. That was, sir, when you are managing complex cases, sir, what matters most, attitude or technique?
I think it is your mindset and attitude. Attitude is everything. So if you have a positive attitude, even if you see a big hurdle, you can kind of overcome it. There's a saying that you climb a mountain, don't carry the mountain. So many people, you know, when they look at the hurdle, they think it's so big and they need to take it with them. But that's not the case. You can plan. So there is something known as the algorithm of the surgery. So you're very clear about your mind map as to how you're going to go about tackling this case. See, surgery is a very fluid situation. Things can change. And when it changes, you will have to have plan B. So you know, okay, at this step, if it goes on well, then I go on to the next step. If there's some other problem, then I do it differently. And you can have a complication. So what I tell all my fellows is that a complication is just a change in your surgical plan, as long it does not affect the patient and the patient's vision. So yes, you've decided to do something in a particular fashion, but it may not go the same way. So you may have to take a different path to end up with the same goal. So a complication is not a complication if it does not affect the patient. It's just a change in your surgical plan. And that is the mindset you should have. And you should remain calm in all situations, because then you can think. And when you think with a clear head, you can resolve the problem. If you don't, if you go into a panic situation, then it does not help, it gets worse. So you'll have to train yourself for that mental attitude and the mental fortitude. Then you can go ahead.
So now let's move on to fun and interactive segment, so which is related to patients' education. So I have some of the patient queries. What I'll do is I'll ask two queries from each one of you. So ma'am, let's start with you. So ma'am, what's the one piece of advice for patients before they are going for the cataract surgery? What precautions should they take?
There are a lot of precautions, which is always informed to the patients. But I think something really important is to keep calm and listen to your doc. So usually we do instruct them, and you know, we keep advising them step by step. The only thing is they have to keep calm and just listen to the doctor. That's it.
So ma'am, what's the common misconception patients have about eye health?
Wow. So patients don't really know that you need to get a regular eye checkup. You know, one misconception is that you go to the ophthalmologist only when something is wrong, right? People get health checkups, complete health checkups, and things like that. But one major thing that is missing in a health checkup is a comprehensive eye checkup. So patients don't realize that no matter what age you are, no matter what is the status of the eye, you have to make sure that you get a checkup every year. Okay, otherwise you may be at risk of something you may not even know.
So, sir, one technological breakthrough that has transformed patient care.
I think if you're looking at cataract and refractive surgery, it's the diagnostics. And cataract, it's the biometry and the biometry formulae, which have improved the accuracy. So, irrespective of the platform, whether it's a monofocal or an EDOF or trifocal, it is your accuracy of calculating the IOL power, and that makes a big difference. For refractive surgery, the screening devices, the tomographers which are there, which actually tells you whether a patient is suitable or not, whether the patient will get a good result, and what are the various parameters you have to take under in consideration. So doing the procedure is one thing, but giving the best result to that patient is what is ultimately going to help the practice.
Help the patients. So, ma'am, what's your go-to tip for maintaining healthy eyes?
Maintaining healthy eyes is washing your eyes regularly, especially for women who use eye makeup at the ending of the day before you go to bed. Please wash it off. Yes, just use you can use even a regular cleanser and just wash your eyes, or there are various tools like cleansing balms that are available to remove heavier eye makeup, but please wash off your eye makeup before going to bed.
Okay. So, ma'am, what's one myth about contact lenses that needs to be busted?
Oh wow. Okay, the biggest myth about contact lenses is probably that contact lenses are safer than refractive surgery. So see, people feel like contact lenses are more safe than getting a spectacle removal procedure, but this is definitely not true. Contact lenses are one of the greatest sources of eye infections. Most people think it's okay to keep their contact lenses in the bathroom, right? So in the bathroom you have so many microbes flying around, you have water. Water is not always clean, especially tap water. It's not clean. So never, keep your contact lenses in the bathroom. Always store them in the cool, dry area. But the myth is that, this is safer. It can cause a lot of eye infections that can be sight threatening. We've seen so many corneal infections, so many in young people, in young patients, especially people who shower with contact lenses, people who go swimming with contact lenses, people who sleep in them. They get corneal infections and they don't even know that this can threaten their vision. However, LASIK is, I wouldn't say LASIK, but all refractive procedures today, most refractive procedures today, especially the latest technologies, like lenticule extraction, are a very safe and effective technique to actually get rid of your glasses without having the hassle of contact lenses and the risk of infection. So this is a myth, and hopefully this busts that myth.
Refractive procedures are safer than contact lenses.
Contact lenses are not necessarily safer than refractive procedure because they can lead to far more dangerous infections than getting rid of your glasses by a refractive procedure.
So, sir, last question for you. Does wearing glasses weaken eyesight over time?
That is actually not true. Glasses are just optical devices which focus rays onto your retina accurately. So wearing the glasses does not weaken your eyesight. Okay, the glasses, of course, if they are heavy, they may give you, scars on your nose or depression on your nose, but it's not going to weaken your eyesight as such. Many of the high myopes have retinal degeneration. This is again genetic. It's also associated with stretching of the retina, and they can develop problems in the retina with which their eyesight can become weak. But wearing glasses itself, no, it does not cause weakness of the eyes. It's just an optical device to focus light onto your eyes. Just like how we do refractive surgery on the cornea to focus light on your eyes. So contact lenses, refractive surgery, glasses, they're just to focus the rays of light so that you can see sharply. They don't weaken your eyesight. Glasses by themselves don't weaken your eyesight. So that's a myth or a misconception.
So, sir, there are a new concept called blue light glasses. Are those safer for the eyes?
See, blue light glasses again, why did it come in? Because if you look at blue light, okay, blue light is there during the daytime, and blue light is very important because the retinal ganglion cells and other cells in the retina, when they receive blue light, they transmit this to the brain, and then this actually is responsible for what we call the circadian rhythm, that is the sleep awake cycle. So when there's blue light, then the brain tells you that you have to be awake and active, and when that reduces, then you sleep. Now what happens is, with all these digital devices and screens, they emit blue light, they emit ultraviolet light, so that can cause a disturbance in the sleep wake cycle, and many of them are working in the evenings after it's dark. So they are working with laptops, iPhones in the evening into the night, and then that actually, it changes the sleep wake cycle, and sleep is very important for normal hormonal production and a lot of other bodily functions. So when that is disturbed, the circadian rhythm is disturbed, it can lead to a lot of ill effects on your metabolic health, on your mental health, and that's why we kind of prescribe the blue blocking glasses, so that people can wear them in the evenings and night, so that that blocks the blue light, so that they can sleep better.
So now we have gone to another segment, that is a prescription for a friend. So, sir, I have, sir, 3 patient real life queries. I'll ask one from each one of you. So, sir, ma'am, my first query is, my dad has diabetes. Should he get his eyes checked even if he has no symptoms?
Yes, and the answer is yes, yes, and yes. So the damage that diabetes, especially uncontrolled diabetes, causes on your eyes, especially your retina, will not present till it is in a more severe stage. So if it is diagnosed sooner, you can get it under control sooner and manage it with better outcomes. The later you come, the more damage that has happened to the retina, the less visual outcomes you have. So if that person is diabetic, they have to get their sugars in control. That's the first line of treatment, is to get their sugars under control, and secondly, come for a regular retinal checkup as well as a complete eye checkup as well.
So, ma'am, you have busted this myth earlier, but there is a query. I love swimming, but I wear contact lenses. What should I do?
Definitely don't swim in them. Okay, the thing is, contact lenses do rub on the cornea, right, and they can cause small abrasions or small little scratches on the cornea, right, and it makes the eye a lot more prone to infections, and it's definitely not advisable to swim or shower or sleep in the contact lenses. So this can land you in deep trouble with a bad eye infection, and this can really affect your vision, and it can cause permanent vision loss. So definitely do not swim in contact lenses, and basically you shouldn't use contact lenses more than 6 to 8 hours in a day continuously. Always remove them or discard them regularly, keep them in a clean box, and also renew the solution quite often, because the solution itself can get infected and that can cause eye infections.
So, sir, there is one query. A mother said, my kid watches cartoons on a phone for 3 hours a day. Should I be worried?
Yes, they should be worried. I believe that children should not be given any of these digital devices, either iPads or iPhones. It affects their development. It affects their attention span. So many of them have this attention deficit disorder, and they're not able to function normally. And when the phones are taken away, then over some period of time, they kind of become normal. So phones are an addiction. There is an immediate dopamine surge when they are looking at cartoons, and and this kind of gives them a hype. But this is short-lived, and then they can have a crash. So it's very important that they don't use these digital devices. If they have to watch cartoons, it's better to watch it on a television. At least it's at a distance. Children, when they do a lot of near work, and they are accommodating and then they are looking at digital devices, there's a higher risk of the myopia increasing. So there's a myopia epidemic which has started,
Yeah.
and most children now, 2020, more than 50% of the world will be myopic. This is actually predicted, and this is because of the digital devices. And children, when they are looking at digital devices, there is a lot of eye strain. They can develop even dryness of the eyes, progression of myopia, apart from the other, mental health problems. So it's very important that children be kept away from these digital devices for
Devices.
as long as possible.
Okay. So, sir, now let's move on to ophthalmic education. Sir, you have a lot of innovations in your name, but this one intrigued me a lot. So, sir, you have invented this GG Cystome Maker. Sir, what inspired you to work on this project?
I operate in multiple centers, multiple operation theaters, and the cystitome basically is made by the assistant. So they use a needle holder to bend the needle and then make it. And every assistant kind of bends it differently. And if you don't have a good cystitome, then you don't get a good capsulorhexis. So then I was thinking, we have to standardize this somehow. And that's how I made this cystitome maker, which you just place the needle and you just crimp it. It's like a plier, and then you get a perfect cystitome, the perfect length of the cystitome, the perfect angulation, so that you can have a standard instrument to do the rexis. And it's very easy. You don't use a needle holder because again the needle holder gets damaged. You can't use it to hold the suture. There's so many issues there. So that's how I kind of made this. Necessary is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
And then if you look at something that is lacking, then you think about how you can actually improve it.
Thank you for being on this podcast. It was a memorable discussion with all three of you. So, this last question: how can podcasting add value in ophthalmology?
Patient education.
Yeah, patient awareness, giving really important information to patients and breaking certain myths. Like, I'm a cornea specialist, and I do a lot of corneal transplant surgeries as well. So it's really, really important to break certain myths regarding corneal donation. It is extremely important in our country because there are so many blind people who require corneal transplant. It is something that anybody can do because it is a donation that's done after death. So if you pledge your eyes for this good cause and inform your next of kin, they can call the nearest eye bank, and the eye bank people will come and collect the eyes. And with your one donation, you can give eyesight to almost 4 corneal blind people. So, breaking certain myths like that can be, and using podcasting as a tool to, spread the awareness to the public that they can do these simple things to help our society in general, I think is a very, very good tool.
Yeah, I think it's all about creating community, and anything we do, there's always a community of people that's interested, have questions, don't know enough about it but want to, and they don't know until they know, right? So, and it's our job to tell them. So I think it's really important, and what you're doing is really great. Please
Thank you so much,
continue doing it. And thanks for inviting us on this session. It's been lovely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
ma'am.
for having us.